Hello, my name is Bahram Khodabandehlouee. Today I am here to do my second presentation on CS590, the course privacy. So the article that I'm going to talk about is more or less economic limits of the blockchain, published by Joshua Gans and Niall Gandel. Um, Previously, we have a paper on blockchain sustainability framework by Bodish that's published in 2018. In this article, the author have extends the Bodish's paper idea and considers proof of stake in addition to proof of work, consensus mechanisms, and permissioned networks, where the number of nodes are fixed. The second big idea of this paper demonstrates that an economically sustainable network will involve the same cost regardless of whether it is proof of work or proof of stake, although in the latter the cost will take the form of liquid financial resources. The third idea is to show that regulating the number of nodes as in a permission network does not lead to additional cost saving. So in the introduction, we have like four parts that I'm going to talk about. First, blockchains rely on validation of blocks or transactions using consensus mechanisms. These mechanisms involve distributed nodes agreeing as to whether a block is valid and whether it should be added to a chain. Second important thing is that the main consensus mechanisms are based on proof of work (POW). This involves a cost of being a proposer in terms of real resources. In Bitcoin protocol, for example, to be a proposer requires winning a computational game. The price for winning is block reward and transaction fee. The third topic uh, is that POW schemes have been criticized for the high level of energy resources required in the Bitcoin network. The main alternative for POW is proof of stake (POS). This involves proposer proving their worthiness by holding a stake in terms of cryptocurrency in the network. It is costly because they essentially make their holdings liquid. And lastly, the economic question is whether POS type systems can perform more efficiently than POW systems. Later on this paper, the author shows that in the case of permissionless blockchains like 3 the costs of POW schemes actually are identical to the cost of POS schemes. In this paper, the author have expanded the work of Bodish in 2018 to consider POS systems and permission blockchains. First, we review Bodish model for permissionless POW blockchains to show that POW protocol we simply matters. We suppose the following throughout the analysis. First, blockchain nodes have a dollar cost C of computing for block reward. This is the marginal cost of electricity plus equipment rental. Second, the block reward is paid out as P tokens. Third, the exchange rate of tokens to dollars is E. Thus, the dollar block reward is EP. A permissionless network implies that anybody can become a node for a miner and will do so if it's profitable. If there are n nodes with identical costs C, then the probability that a node earns the block reward is 1 over n. This means that a node's expected payoff is 1 over n times EP minus C. As we mentioned, EP is dollar block reward. Assuming that all nodes are honest, their number n in equilibrium is determined by a free entry constraint whereby the equilibrium number of nodes n hat will be the highest n such that 1 over n times EP is greater than or equal C. That means C is equal EP over n hat. We call this condition as FE or free entry. The free entry condition has a strong implication for the resource cost per block, NC. It is no, in the situation NC, it is no higher than EP. This means that a fall in C will not reduce the economic cost of mining since N will rise. That is given P and E and C is constant. The FE condition dictates what drives miners to enter when they are honest in the sense of being interested in processing transactions and validating blocks. However, miners could also be dishonest in the sense of having other goals that cause them to want to append blocks with information they know to be false. A sustainable blockchain has to be robust against such agents, deterring their entry. Badish in 2018 was the first researcher to consider this and choose the term incentive compatibility or IC constraint. To derive this constraint, assume that there are honest miners. Conducting activities that are dishonest requires effective control of the network. At a minimum, in PW, this requires a dishonest miner to control a majority of computing capacity. Specifically, they need to add computing power equivalent to n plus epsilon. This means that the cost of conducting dishonest activities on the network is at least NC per block. One example of this is forking a network beyond a certain point. This involves mining a private network for a certain period of time until it has the longest chain and then making the network public, attracting other miners. This procedure is a precursor to a dishonest miner engaging in multiple spends on cryptocurrency. Bodish considers two limiting factors on a simple majority attack. First, some activities from dishonest miners may require more than a simple majority to implement. For instance, control to achieve a fork may require control of A over A plus 1% of the nodes. Thus, the cost per block for entry by a dishonest miner would be A and C. The second factor is that for some activities that involves interaction outside the blockchain, such as a multi-spend attack, control of the blockchain cannot be confined to just the block in question, but may require a time period to elapse. Thus, the dishonest node may have to control the network for a time, which translates into adding T blocks to the system. Offsetting these limiting factors is the fact that while controlling a network, a block reward EP that will be earned for each block added. That reward accrues to the dishonest miner. Putting these together, the net cost to the dishonest miner is ANC minus EP times T. Suppose that the private benefit for an attacker is VE. We can see that dishonest entry to a blockchain network consisting of n nodes will not be profitable based on this equation that we see here. We call this equation IC for incentive compatibility. The left-hand side of this equation that we see AT&C minus TEP is the cost of controlling NA nodes for T periods of time. The right-hand side VE is the benefit of exercising that control for personal benefits. To summarize, the free entry condition describes how many nodes will be established by miners for a given cost C involved in POW, while the IC constraint describes how high that cost C has to be to deter entry by dishonest miners. To explore this, let's look at this plot at point N star. The IC constraint is satisfied. In other words, the blockchain is sustainable, and moreover, it is sustainable for a large range of C because the free entry constraint lies above the IC constraint. By contrast, in the second figure, figure number 2 that we are looking at, the IC constraint is above the free entry condition. In this case, for any true choice of C, the number of dishonest nodes that would enter as implied by the free entry condition would be too few and would create an incentive for dishonest miners to enter. Thus, in this case, there is no value of C that would make blockchain sustainable. So, to prove of stack, there are some points. First, POS protocols are an attempt to allow for consensus mechanisms without relying on real resources, as in POW. This is achieved by requiring nodes to stack a sufficient quantity of tokens in order to be considered as a validator for a new block of transactions. Second, one class of methods is chain-based. This implies that validators have a probability of proposing a block and receiving a block reward based on the amount they have stacked to the network, like POW, as mentioned. Third, the stack S can be chosen in a permissible, permissionless POS protocol, which means that potentially like C, it is a designed decision. And as in my last slide that I'm going to talk about the conclusion, this analysis shows that there is no difference between proof of work and proof of stake in terms of resource cost. Further, when the block reward is uh, indigenous, there is no difference in cost between permissionless and permissioned blockchain. And regardless of whether it is POW or POS, or permissioned or permissionless, being able to have a block reward that can be adjusted to market condition is the way to ensure sustainable blockchains. Something that I liked, I want to mention, but this paper that I really liked was about this article that it clearly showed how an economically sustainable network will involve the same cost regardless of whether it is proof of work or proof of stake, and it was very interesting to know how it works. And in the last, finally, the part of this article that I personally didn't like was regarding one of the big ideas in the beginning of the paper, which was the poor explanation about how number of nodes as in a permission network does not lead to additional cost saving. It was kind of hard to follow, and other than that, everything was really great, and it was really interesting going over this article. Thank you so much for your time, and this was my presentation.